Harvard Yard was roaring with cheers. "I'm Eve. I'm 22, a data scientist, and I just graduated." Beside me, my twin sister, Olivia, was beaming for the cameras, already looking like the masterpiece my mother, Helen, always called her. My mother stepped up, smiling that perfect fundraiser smile. For Olivia, a fully funded trip around Europe, Paris, Venice. For me, a small envelope. Inside, a $10 Starbucks card and a handwritten note. I read the careful cursive, "Gratitude makes life richer." The crowd around us laughed. "Isn't that sweet?" My stomach didn't just drop, it seized. Heat climbed my spine. They didn't know. They had no idea that for the last 18 months, every single mortgage payment keeping their perfect red brick house from foreclosure had come from my late-night coding sessions. Standing in my gown, the sound of the cheers fading, I realized the truth. My family didn't raise daughters, they built investments, and I had just been downgraded. In that moment, something didn't break. It clicked. A quiet, final lock turning in my mind. I was done paying. When I stopped, they didn't just lose money, they lost their masks. Have you ever been the invisible one holding everything together? If you have, subscribe. You know exactly what happens next. When people talk about family, they picture Sunday dinners, shared laughter, the smell of something warm coming from the oven. In the Hale house, everything looked perfect. Our house in Newton was a postcard, red brick walls, a bright white door, hydrangeas in the front yard that were the envy of the street. But inside, love had a dress code. And I was always underdressed. My mother, Helen, loved presentation. Her smile could host fundraisers, her tone could end arguments. She believed in appearances more than affection. She was the architect of our perfect family. And Olivia, my twin, was her masterpiece. Olivia was charming, graceful, the kind of girl who sparkled even in bad lighting. She didn't just walk into a room, she made an entrance. People were drawn to her, and my mother polished her like a trophy. I was the other one. I was quiet, I was precise. I was the one who kept the Wi-Fi running and made sure the bills were paid on time. I was the structural engineer holding up the facade, and no one ever looks at the beams when the wallpaper is pretty. This wasn't new. This dynamic was forged when we were young. I remember when we were 10. We played at a small piano recital downtown. The room smelled like floor wax and old coffee. I remember the faint citrus scent from my mom's perfume as she fussed with Olivia's hair, and the sharp, high-pitched squeak of the metal folding chairs as the audience settled. I went first. I played Beethoven's Moonlight Sonata. Every note was precise. My fingers moved exactly as I'd practiced, hitting every key with perfect weight. I didn't look up. I just focused on the music, on the structure, on getting it right. When I finished, there was polite applause. I stood, bowed, and walked back to my seat, my face hot. Then, Mom's voice, soft but sharp, a whisper meant only for me. "Eve," she said, not looking at me, "you should play with more feeling. Music isn't math." I nodded. My throat burned. I stared at the floor, my hands balling into fists in my lap. Then it was Olivia's turn. She sat down, smiled brightly at the crowd, and began. She fumbled the opening. She missed notes. Halfway through, she visibly lost her place, paused, giggled, and then just smiled through the rest, playing with a kind of dramatic flair that covered up all the mistakes. When she finished, my mother, Helen, clapped louder than anyone. Her face was lit up. "See?" she said to the woman next to her, loud enough for me to hear. "That's heart." That was the day I learned the fundamental rule of the Hale family. Mistakes wrapped in charm were art. Effort wrapped in silence was invisible. So, I leaned into what I was good at. I became the family technician, the accountant, the fixer. Years passed. The requests became routine. "Eve, honey, your father's email got hacked again. Can you reset it?" "Eve, my Apple ID is locked. I can't remember the password. Handle it." "Eve, Olivia's resume formatting is broken, and she has to send it out. Can you just fix it? She's too stressed." I handled it. I fixed it. I reset it. I did it all so quietly, so efficiently, that it never registered as labor. It was just what Eve does. I was the family's human utility. Reliable, invisible, unpaid. I was at Harvard when the real crisis hit. I was deep in a data modeling project for SynthCore, my first big internship. My dad, Robert, called. His voice wasn't his usual booming, confident tone. It was thin, strained. He was talking about the mortgage. Interest rates were rising. The bank was playing hardball. I could hear the panic rattling under his words, the fear of the facade cracking. He didn't ask me for money. He never would. He just complained at me, using me as a sounding board for his anxiety. He hung up. I sat in my dorm room, the blue light of my laptop screen painting the walls. I listened to the silence. I thought about the red brick house. I thought about the hydrangeas. I thought about Mom's perfect smile and Olivia's effortless charm. And I thought about them losing it. I opened my laptop. I went to my banking portal. I looked at the numbers I'd earned from SynthCore, numbers I built, line by line, algorithm by algorithm. Then I opened the mortgage company's website. I found the guest payment portal. I typed in the account number I'd memorized years ago when I was fixing Dad's financial spreadsheets. And I quietly took over the payments. I set up an automatic transfer. Each month, the money left my account. I was meticulous. I added a note to every single payment, a little digital breadcrumb, I thought. Maybe, someday, they'd find. Hail Household Eve contribution. 18 months, for a year and a half, that note flashed across their bank statement, and not once. Not one person ever asked me what it meant. Maybe I wanted to believe love could grow quietly, like a seed planted in the dark. But in that house, only what glittered ever got sunlight. My life became a split screen. At night, I was at Harvard, coding for SynthCore, the glow of my dual monitors spilling across my tiny dorm room walls. I was building complex data models for medical technology, something real, something that worked, something that could, maybe, help someone. My phone would buzz on the desk. A new post. It was Olivia, on a rooftop in Boston, laughing, a glass of champagne in her hand. The city lights sparkled behind her, but she sparkled more. I'd look back at my screen, my bank account, climbing past 5 digits. I didn't celebrate. I just stared at the number. An internal monologue, a constant, quiet whisper. Maybe now? Maybe this is enough. Maybe now they'll see me. They never did. They saw the miracle, the interest rates stabilizing, the bank being kind. They believed in anything but the truth that was sitting right in front of them, in their own home. So, when Mom, Helen, handed Olivia that Europe trip and handed me that $10 gift card in Harvard Yard, it wasn't a new wound. It was just the prettiest, most public version of what had always been true. But something in me shifted that day. Not loudly, not dramatically. It was quiet. Like a door, somewhere deep inside, clicking shut. The graduation dinner was supposed to feel like an ending and a beginning. Instead, it felt like a verdict. The dining room glowed under the crystal chandelier, the one Mom polished every Saturday. The table was set with the good china, the one we only used for Thanksgiving and Easter. The air smelled of roast beef and my mother's expensive perfume. It was all perfect, a perfect scene. Then, they brought out the cake. A massive white sheet cake. In swirling blue icing, it said, "Congratulations, Olivia and Eve." But her name was written twice the size of mine. I just stared at it. It was so blatant, so normal. Of course it was. Why wouldn't it be? I almost laughed. Mom's voice carried over the clinking of silverware. She was holding court, beaming. "Olivia will need to pack soon," she announced to my aunt. "Paris first, then Venice. She's always had such vision, such a grasp of culture." Vision. I thought of the $10 card in my pocket. My father, Robert, raised his glass of wine. "A toast," he boomed. "To my daughters. Both brilliant, of course." He smiled at me, a quick, dismissive nod. Then his gaze settled on Olivia, and it warmed. But Olivia, she just has that spark of leadership. She's going to run the world. The table laughed. They all agreed. Olivia sparkled. I smiled. I raised my glass. I took a bite of cake that I didn't taste. It was just sweet, and it stuck in my throat. Then, the performance reached its climax. Mom turned to me. Her tone softened, dropping into that patronizing, syrupy sweetness she reserved for when she was about to deliver a life lesson. She called it wisdom. "Eve, dear," she said, loud enough for the table to hear. "I hope you'll learn to be happy with less, too. It's an important quality." She smiled, reaching over to pat my hand. After all, gratitude makes life richer. The same line. The exact same line from the $10 card. It wasn't a platitude, it was a command. Be grateful for the scraps we give you. Be happy in the shadows. Don't ask for the spotlight. I nodded. Inside, something didn't crack. It turned to ice. Later that night, long after Olivia had gone out with her friends to celebrate properly, I sat in my childhood room. The house was finally quiet. I was lit by the blue glow of my laptop. Out of habit, just pure, stupid habit, I opened my banking app. The list of payments appeared on the screen. A long, digital scroll. Hail Household Eve Contribution. Hail Household Eve Contribution. Hail Household Eve Contribution. 18 months of them. 18 months of my work, my sleepless nights, my life, poured into that red brick facade. The thought hit me like a bucket of cold water. They had never even wondered. They hadn't just missed the payments, they had ignored them. They believed in miracles. They believed in the bank being kind. They believed in interest rates dropping. They would believe in anything. Anything but the truth that I, the invisible one, the one who needed to learn about gratitude, had been the one holding the roof up over their heads. I stared at the screen, and I knew I was done. The next morning, I woke up before the sun. The house was still. I sat at my childhood desk, opened my laptop, and logged into my bank. The automatic transfer was scheduled for the next day. Hail Household Eve Contribution. My finger hovered over the mouse. I thought about the $10 card. I thought about the cake. I thought about heart versus math. I clicked. Cancel this automatic payment? Yes. A small, green confirmation box appeared. Your payment has been canceled. It felt small, anticlimactic, and absolutely final. I closed the laptop, went downstairs, and made coffee as if it were any other day. I moved into a small studio in Cambridge. I started my full-time job at SynthCore. I unpacked my boxes. I bought a new coffee mug. I didn't tell my family my new address. They didn't notice. 2 weeks went by. 2 weeks of silence. I worked, I ate, I slept. I paid my rent with my money. It felt different, solid. Then, on a Tuesday, my phone buzzed. The caller ID, Dad Robert. I let it ring 3 times. Then I picked up. Eve. Hi, Dad. His voice was casual. Too casual. Hey, Eve. Strange thing. The bank called. They said the mortgage payment. It didn't go through. Did something happen with your account? I stared at the brick wall of my new apartment. Did something happen with my account? Not. Did you stop paying? Not. Were you the one paying? He still didn't see it. He just assumed my account was the family's account, and there was a technical glitch. Nothing happened with my account, I said, my voice perfectly level. A pause. Well, he said, I don't understand. The payment didn't process. I know, I said. I stopped it. The silence on the other end of the line was heavy. It was the sound of a gear grinding, of a worldview failing to compute. What? I stopped paying, Dad. I heard him take a sharp breath. The fake casualness vanished. His voice sharpened into the one he used when he was disappointed, when we hadn't lived up to the hail name. Eve. You can't just walk away. I'm not walking away. We're family, he cut in, his voice rising. You have an obligation to help. This is what family does. I did help, I said, and I was shocked at how tired I sounded. I helped for a year and a half. Did you ever wonder where the money was coming from? Don't change the subject. Then I heard shuffling. My mother's voice, Helen, high-pitched and trembling with disbelief, was suddenly on the line. She must have been listening on speaker. Eve? Don't be dramatic, she said, her voice laced with that familiar, patronizing disappointment. Honestly, you're lucky to have what you do. Don't let a little success make you arrogant. 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 My work, my 18 months of silent support, was arrogance. My sacrifice was a dramatic tantrum. That $10 gift card was gratitude. I almost laughed. It was all so perfectly, horribly, them. I held the phone away from my ear, staring at their names on the screen. "I'm not arrogant, Mom," I said, very, very quietly. "I'm just tired." I hung up. They didn't call back. That night, I went back to my parents' house. They weren't home. I used my old key. I walked into my childhood room. I packed the rest of my things. There was no yelling, no tears, just the steady, rhythmic zip of my suitcase. The soft thud of folded fabric. I took my diploma off the wall. I left the $10 Starbucks card on the empty desk. I drove across the Longfellow Bridge. The city lights of Boston spilled over the Charles River, bright and cold and clean. They looked like data points, like possibilities. I wasn't escaping my family. I was escaping the version of myself they needed me to be. Quiet, useful, and invisible. And I had no idea that by the time they realized what I'd stopped giving, it would already be too late. The first sign of their next move came on a Tuesday morning. I was at my desk at SynthCore, mapping a data cluster. My phone, set to silent, blinked on the desk. A bank alert. Request to add new backup payment method to Hale Mortgage. For a second, I thought it was a glitch. Then I saw the details. The request was initiated by Robert Hale, my father. He hadn't called. He hadn't asked. He had simply, as the head of the household, tried to log in and reconnect my account, as if my money still belonged to the family by default. As if my no was just a temporary bug in the system that he, the administrator, could override. My fingers were cold on the keyboard. I sat very still, the coffee cooling beside my laptop. Then I picked up my phone and called the bank. The representative's voice was soft, almost apologetic, as she read the script. "We just need to confirm, ma'am. Did you authorize this request?" "No," I said. My voice was low, but it didn't shake. "I did not. I want that request logged. I want the IP address it came from logged. And I want you to freeze this account from all external access attempts. I want a record of every single change." "Yes, ma'am. I want a case number." Calm came back to me. It felt like muscle memory. I wasn't an emotional daughter. I was a data scientist. I wrote down the case number, the date, and the time. Then I hung up. I opened my laptop, and on my clean desktop, I right-clicked. New folder. I typed one word, evidence. Inside it, I started gathering everything. I saved the bank alert. I wrote a text file with the case number. I methodically went through my old statements and saved PDFs of every single one of the 18 payments. Hale Household Eve contribution. I saved the email from the bank confirming the freeze. I wasn't emotional. I was precise. Every file was a data point. Every data point was a fact. And facts were the one thing they couldn't twist. That weekend, I drove to Newton. The house looked the same. Red brick, white door. The hydrangeas were perfect, but the air inside was different. It was heavy, stale, the smell of old coffee and panic. They were waiting for me in the living room, a staged ambush. Mom, Helen, sat on the couch, eyes red and puffy. Dad, Robert, stood by the window, jaw tight, staring at the perfect lawn. And Olivia. Olivia leaned against the wall, arms crossed, perfect nails tapping her phone. A spectator. As always, Dad spoke first, without turning around. "We need to talk." "I'm here," I said, staying by the door. He turned, his face flushed. "You know what happens if the bank forecloses, Eve? Do you have any idea the humiliation?" I met his eyes. The fear was there, but the entitlement was stronger. "Then maybe you'll finally understand what it costs to live on someone else's dime." His face hardened. "Don't talk to me like that. This is family?" I finished for him. "I'm part of it. But I am not your bank." Mom's voice broke through, desperate and watery. "Eve, please." She stood up, her hands twisting in front of her. "You don't have to make this harder than it already is." "I'm not making it hard," I said, my voice quiet, but it cut through the heavy air. "You made it hard, Mom. You made it hard when you used my trust like an ATM code." No one spoke. The old grandfather clock in the hall ticked. Tick, tock. the sound of time they were running out of. Then, Olivia. She let out an exasperated sigh, pushing off the wall. "You're so overreacting," she muttered, rolling her eyes. "You could have just talked to them. You're always so dramatic." I turned my head. I looked at her, the perfect hair, the designer jeans I probably paid for, the casual, bored dismissal of my entire life's pain. "Overreacting," I repeated. I let the word hang in the air. "You mean, like when you got a trip around Europe, and I got a $10 lecture on gratitude?" Her smile faltered. Her face went pale. For the first time, she had no answer. I looked around at the living room. The family photos on the mantel, the router I'd installed, the chandelier Mom was so proud of. Every object felt like a lie. "I'm done," I said softly. Then I turned, walked out, and closed the white door behind me. I didn't slam it, I just closed it. This time, no yelling followed me, just silence. The kind of silence that burns more than any word. It started with one careless click. It was late, past midnight. I was drowning in spreadsheets, trying to get my tax records in order for my accountant. My apartment was quiet, the only sound, the click of my keys and the low hum of my server. Coffee, long cold, sat untouched by my elbow. I needed to send my accountant proof of my major expenses. I opened the evidence folder. It was just a financial record, I told myself. A file for my taxes. I drafted the email. I attached the zip file. My hands were shaking, not from fear, but from exhaustion. My email client helpfully suggested recipients. My accountant's name populated the to field. And in the CC field, it auto-filled the last group I'd been included on. Hail Family Updates. The email group my aunt had set up years ago to share holiday photos. I didn't see it. My eyes were blurry. My mind was on a data string. I hit send. The whoosh sound echoed in the silent room. I shut the laptop and fell into bed. By morning, my phone was exploding. It wasn't a buzz. It was a violent, angry vibration, rattling against the wood of my nightstand. I stared at the screen. 52 notifications, missed calls, a flood of texts. My blood turned to ice. Before I could even unlock it, the screen lit up. "Helen, my mother." I picked up. Her voice wasn't a yell. It was a breathless, ragged whisper. The sound of pure, undiluted panic. "Eve, what did you do? What are you talking about?" My throat was dry. "Facebook!" she shrieked, her voice finally cracking. "Your aunt! She posted it all on Facebook!" My stomach lurched. I fumbled for my laptop, my hands shaking so badly I could barely type. I pulled up my aunt's page. There it was. Screenshots. My payment list. My name. My meticulous notes. Hail Household Eve contribution. Hail Household Eve contribution. Hail Household Eve contribution. And my aunt's shocked, horrified caption posted an hour ago. "I just got this in an email. 18 months of payments from my niece Eve." Did anyone know she was paying Robert and Helen's mortgage? It was public. Comments were flooding in. Neighbors, Mom's fundraiser friends, people from our old church. The story was out. The mask hadn't just been lost. It had been ripped off and put on display for the entire town. Oh God. The email. The CC field. My careless, tired click. The phone buzzed in my hand. It was Dad. Robert. I answered. I felt nothing. The panic was gone. His voice was stripped bare. All the bluster, the confidence, the head of the household authority, it was all gone, replaced by something hollow, empty, cold. "Do you know what you've done?" he whispered. "You've embarrassed this family." I let out a long, quiet breath. The panic was gone, the guilt was gone. All that was left was a strange, cold stillness. The truth. "No, Dad," I said. My voice was as calm as the flat line on a heart monitor. I didn't embarrass anyone. I just stopped hiding the truth. He didn't yell. He didn't argue. He just hung up. The click was deafening. The final domino fell 2 days later. My aunt, mortified by the explosion she'd caused, called me and told me everything. The local bank manager, seeing the Facebook post that the entire town was whispering about, had called my father in for an emergency review. That refinance application my dad had submitted, the one he was counting on to save them after I cut him off, was flagged. red flagged. The official reason, printed on cold, impersonal bank letterhead, unstable payment history. Without my deposits, they couldn't prove consistent funds. The house, their perfect red brick badge of pride, was no longer an asset. It was a liability. And the bill was finally, irrevocably, due. Justice doesn't always roar. Sometimes it's just a quiet, three-word sign hammered into a perfect lawn. For sale, by bank. Within weeks, the Newton house was listed. The red brick facade, the white door, the pristine hydrangeas, just another listing on Zillow, stripped of its power. The neighbors whispered. My aunt called me, weeping, apologizing. She hadn't understood, she'd just been shocked. The Hale's perfect family image, the one my mother, Helen, had polished with her own life, was cracked like porcelain dropped on a tile floor. I didn't watch. I didn't drive by. I kept working. I poured every bit of focus I had into synthcore. My work on the new data models got noticed, not by my family, but by people who understood what they were looking at. An investor from a Harvard fellowship program, a sharp, quiet man named Mr. Kaito, reached out. He'd seen my graduation presentation. He asked me to present again, this time to his board. I stood in a glass-walled conference room high over the city. I spoke about user-focused data models in healthcare. How clarity and structure weren't just math, how they could save lives. I didn't use feeling. I used facts. When I finished, the room was quiet. Mr. Kaito walked up, bypassing the polite applause, and shook my hand. He looked me right in the eye. This, he said, his voice firm, is what impact looks like. That one sentence, this is what impact looks like. It did more for me, healed more in me, than every empty word of praise I had begged for and never gotten from home. 6 months later, with backing from that fellowship, I founded Clarity Data. It wasn't a big, flashy corporation. It was a tiny office near Kendall Square. Exposed brick walls, second-hand desks, and sunlight spilling through tall, old windows. I didn't hang a fancy diploma. I taped a single white sheet of paper to the wall. On it, in black marker, I'd written our mission. We design clarity for those who save lives. It was real. It was mine. The call I never thought would come happened on a rainy Tuesday. My phone lit up. Helen. My stomach didn't drop this time. I didn't feel angry. I just felt calm. I answered. Her voice was small, cracked, a sound I had never heard before. Eve. I just wanted to say, I'm sorry. The word hung in the air, heavy and strange. I know what I did, she whispered, and I could hear her weeping. I treated you like a wallet, not a daughter, and now I see what that cost. I sat in my new office, listening. For the first time in my life, she didn't make excuses. She didn't blame me. Finally, I said, I forgive you, Mom. Her breath hitched, a tiny sound of shock. But forgiveness doesn't mean going back. I know, she whispered. I know. I just needed you to know. When the call ended, I stared out the window, watching the rain wash the city clean. I ran into her by accident one late winter afternoon. The Whole Foods in Cambridge. The store was warm and bright, a sharp contrast to the cold gray sky outside. The air smelled of fresh bread and oranges. I was reaching for a bundle of kale when I heard it. A voice, fragile as old paper. Eve? I turned. She looked smaller than I had ever seen her. Her coat seemed too big. Her hair, once so perfectly styled, was streaked with gray. We just stared at each other over the vegetables. She stepped closer, her eyes glassy. I don't want to make excuses, she said, her voice trembling. Seeing you here? I'm sorry. I really am. Her voice cracked, and she looked down. I thought I was teaching you gratitude, she whispered. But I wasn't. I was teaching you how to disappear. I should have protected you. Not the image of our family. I gripped the cold metal handle of the shopping cart. I looked at her, really looked at her. The anger was gone. I wasn't the invisible daughter. She wasn't the perfect matriarch. We were just two women in a grocery store. I know, Mom, I said quietly. I hope you find peace. She nodded, tears sliding down her cheeks, and she turned. She walked toward the checkout. I watched her go until she disappeared past the registers. I stood there for a long minute. Then I let go of the cart. And I felt light. A feeling I had never known. My chest, which had been tight for 22 years, finally unclenched. I wasn't angry. I wasn't sad. I was just free. The background music of the store, the chatter of shoppers, it all faded. For the first time, there was silence in my head. Peace. That night, I stood by my apartment window, a cup of tea warming my hands. Boston glittered beyond the glass, steady, alive, unbothered. On the wall above my desk, I'd framed two things, side by side. The $10 Starbucks gift card from graduation, and the framed incorporation certificate for Clarity Data. The card used to sting. It used to be a symbol of everything I wasn't. Now, it was a receipt, a reminder of the price I'd paid to become who I am. I smiled, whispering to myself, gratitude doesn't mean bowing your head. It means knowing when to lift it. If you've ever had to walk away from people who loved what you gave, but not who you were, know this. You are not alone. Share your story in the comments. Hit subscribe, because silence deserves a voice. And tonight, mine finally has one.